holds directly or indirectly 20% or more of the voting power of the investee, it is presumed that the entity has significant influence unless it can be clearly demonstrated that this is not the case. Number one is true since significant influence is presumed unless it can be clearly demonstrated that it is not the case.
Class for past 28 class, I do not expect you to fully absorb all the provisions in past 28, but the important thing here is that one of the important things here is that you know as to when past 28 will apply. Past 28 will apply to your associates. If you invested in other companies and the extent of your investment makes the investee corporation your associate. And when does the investee corporation become an associate? It is when you have significant influence. It's possible, man class, especially for those who are engaged in stock trading, that you own 1% or even less than 1% of the shares of a corporation. Okay? So you are an investor, but you are not involved, you do not have any participation in the management of the business, in the policy making of the business. But if ever your investment class, the extent of your investment, reaches the point in which you will now be involved in the policy making, then you will now treat that investee corporation as your associate. And such investment will have to be accounted for differently. If you just own less than 1% of the shares of a corporation class, then that will just be treated as a regular investment. It will be PFRS 9 that will apply. But if your investment in a corporation reaches to a point that you already have significant influence in the policy making and in the management of the business, then you will now have to apply past 28. So again, very important class. When does an investee corporation become your associate? Only when your investment in such entity gives you significant influence. But when can you say you have significant influence? One of the indicator class is that if your investment reaches 20% or more. Now, before I allow you to continue to number 2, very important class, the cutoff is 20%. Okay, if it's 20% or more, up to 50%, up to majority shareholdings, you will apply past 28. Below 20%, it will just be a passive investment. It will just be a regular investment. So it will be PFRS 9 that will apply. If you go beyond 50%, then it will now be PFRS 3 that will apply. It will now be considered as a subsidiary. It will not be an associate, it will be a subsidiary, and you will now be considered as a parent. But let's not focus so much on PFRS 3. The point here is if you have significant influence, then you will apply past 28. When do you have significant influence? If you have 20% or more. Below 20%, it's just a passive investment. You are not involved in the policy making and in the management. So just apply PFRS 9. But if your investment has reached to a point that you are now the majority shareholder, then it is no longer an associate but a subsidiary. So it's no longer past 28, but this time it would be PFRS 3. Okay? But last point, class. You do not blindly follow 20%. You follow significant influence. What do I mean? The problem tells you you only have 19%. You only have 19%, but you have significant influence. Is that possible? The answer is yes. So in that case, you will be asked, are you going to apply past 28? The answer is yes, because you have significant influence. Then you will ask, even though it is less than 20%? Yes, because the primary determining factor is the absence or presence of significant influence. The 20% or more here, class, is just an indicator that significant influence exists. If the problem tells you already that you have significant influence, then do not argue with the problem anymore. Apply past 28. When do you look at 20% or more? Only when the problem is silent as to the presence of significant influence. Okay, if the problem does not tell you whether or not there is significant influence, then you check your interest in the company. If it is 20% or more, you assume that there is significant influence. Okay? So what if the another instance is the problem tells you you have 25%, but it also tells you that you do not have significant influence. Are you going to apply past 28? The answer is no, because it is clear that you do not have significant influence. You look for significant influence first. If the problem is silent as to the presence or absence of significant influence, only then will you test or check the shareholdings, the percentage of your shareholdings. I hope that's clear to everyone, class. Check significant influence first. If it's silent, then you look at the shareholdings. Because there's a presumption that if it's at least 20%, then you have significant influence. Unless the opposite can be clearly demonstrated. And then if again it's below 20% PFRS lang. If there's significant influence, then past 28. Okay? Now, pinaka-last nga point good class. Some problems will focus on 20%. Okay, if it will give you 21%, then you will be sure nga there's a presumption of significant influence. Some problems will focus nga you have 20%. It would test your memory on what was the rule. Is it more than 20% or was it 20% or more? Understand, class, that more than 20% is different from 20% or more. And what is the rule in past 28? 20% or more. So if it's exactly 20%, is there a presumption that there is significant influence? The answer is yes. Please do not be confused with 20%. The moment it steps on 20%, there's already a presumption of significant influence. Again, sometimes the problem will make you confused. It would say at least 20%, 20% or more than 20%, or more than 19%, and so on and so forth. Okay, the moment it reaches 20%, then there is already a presumption of significant influence. Again, I do not expect you to have complete understanding of all the provisions of past 28, but at least make sure to know number one, class. Make sure to know about significant influence and the importance of the 20% threshold.